Lockdown Jets podcast here on this Tuesday evening. It is our second episode of the day because the Jets made a move Tuesday afternoon, signing veteran quarterback Trevor Siemian, former member of the Denver Broncos, former member of the Minnesota Vikings, former member of the New Orleans Saints, former member of the Chicago Bears, and actually a former member of the New York Jets. If you remember back in 2019, the Jets signed Siemian to back up then quarterback Sam Darnold. Siemian started one game for the Jets. It was week 2. It was a Monday night game against the Cleveland Browns, and he suffered a season-ending ankle injury in the first half of that game. Siemian's career Jet stats were 3 for 6 for 3 yards. So Siemian may have an opportunity to improve those numbers a little bit. That's a pretty iconic stat line for your career with the New York Jets. 3 for 6, 3 yards. The Jets finally bring in another quarterback a couple of weeks after Aaron Rodgers goes down. A move that I'm not sure the move of signing Siemian necessarily had to be made, but the Jets had to bring in another quarterback. The team was one play away from Tim Boyle being the starting quarterback. That just is not a situation conducive to anything good. It's not that Trevor Siemian's great. Quite frankly, no quarterback the Jets signed at this time of the year was going to be very good. When we are 3 weeks into the regular season, pretty much any quarterback who's good is already signed. I mean, yeah, I guess you could make an argument. Maybe Carson Wentz is better. Maybe Nick Foles is better. If you want to argue Colt McCoy is better. Well, think about what you're arguing right there. There's very little difference between these guys and Trevor Siemian. I do think there is an appreciable difference between Trevor Siemian and a Tim Boyle. And the other thing I'll add is that Trevor Siemian's the type of quarterback, well, he's not great. He's the type of quarterback who in Sunday's game, when Zach Wilson was struggling so mightily, the Jets could have turned to Siemian, and he's a very limited player. I don't want to make him out to be more than he is. I don't think he's going to lead the Jets to victories over the great teams in the NFL. But against a team like the New England Patriots, a team that's 0-2, a team that's on the road, a team that just doesn't have a lot of firepower, could Siemian have made enough plays for the Jets to win that game? I think he might have. This is not the type of move, most likely, that's the difference between the Jets making and missing the playoffs. It's not the type of move that provides enough of an upgrade over Zach Wilson if he needs to play that it would make that much of a difference most weeks. But in a game against New England, like last week, maybe it would have. And right now, you're just trying to get better. I mean, there's not many mechanisms you have to improve as a football team at this point of the year. There aren't many positions where there are good players available at this point of the year. There's a guy who's better than Tim Boyle. So first of all, if anything happens to Zach Wilson, Siemian can step in. He'll play at a higher level than Boyle. Second, if Wilson's struggling, you could turn to Siemian in a way you probably could not turn to Boyle. And beyond that, all the time to need to learn the Jet system. I think that's one of those things. You talk about veteran quarterbacks, they can typically step in pretty quickly. It only takes them maybe a couple of weeks to really get a system down because they've played in every offense there is to know. And essentially in the NFL, most teams are running very similar plays. The biggest thing you need to learn is just the terminology, because one team may call a certain play one term, another team calls another play a different term. So it's really about getting the terminology down. But if you've been in the NFL long enough, especially for a guy like Siemian who's been on multiple teams, there's not that big of a difference typically. So you can usually pick these things up pretty quickly. So I would imagine Siemian should be ready to at least be the number 2 quarterback, and maybe not this week, but a week from next week or even 2 weeks down the line. So he should be ready to go fairly quickly for this football team. Not a move that's going to be very popular because Siemian's not that good, but I don't know what else the Jets can really do at this time of year. I don't think a trade for somebody like Kirk Cousins is really on the table at the moment. And look, the way Zach Wilson played on Sunday, they had to do something. The status quo at quarterback just was not good enough. Zach Wilson being the only option they could play, that went out the window the way he played against New England. Now, I'm not even sure it should have been on the table because there's still plenty of options available better than Tim Boyle. And quite frankly, so if the Jets were interested in Siemian, they could have signed him sooner. That's the one thing I would question about this more than anything as we continue the special Tuesday night edition of the Locked On Jets podcast. I'm going to go into that a little bit deeper. Why did the Jets wait 2 weeks after Aaron Rodgers got hurt before bringing in a veteran quarterback? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We'll discuss that a little bit further on this special second edition of the Locked On Jets podcast here on this Tuesday. This episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by Nutrafol. Men think losing their hair is inevitable. Take control of your hair's future with Nutrafol's science-based hair growth supplement for men. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated natural science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free patented technology provides consistent, reliable results. Go to Nutrafol.com/men to take their hair health wellness quiz. Identify causes of your thinning hair, and Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through their whole body wellness. Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting the root causes of thinning hair, such as stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. This episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by FanDuel. You may have heard the NFL season is underway, and you can snap into the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Again, that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. I know the Jets are kind of tough to watch right now. Maybe you don't want to place money on the Jets, but there's still a lot of great NFL action going on out there, lots of exciting storylines across the league, and you can get into the action by using FanDuel. Again, it's America's #1 sportsbook. The app is easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. Again, it's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. This is the Locked On Jets podcast here on this Tuesday. It's our second episode of the day. Big shout out to you everydayers. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. We have new episodes each day through the week, Monday through Friday, and then bonus episodes such as this one when news breaks. News broke this afternoon that the Jets signed Trevor Siemian, the veteran quarterback. It's actually his second stint with the Jets. He was Adam Gase's backup back in 2019, only lasted less than half a game, only threw 6 passes for the Jets then. Well, he has returned. He is back with the Jets, and he will be Zach Wilson's backup, presumably going forward. And who knows, if Zach Wilson continues to struggle, not out of the realm of possibility that Trevor Siemian eventually takes over as this team's starting quarterback, which, kind of tells you where the Jets are at the quarterback position. But, here's the thing I don't really understand. Aaron Rodgers, of course, went down week 1 against the Buffalo Bills. I don't understand why it took them 2 weeks to bring in Trevor Siemian as the backup, because first of all, it's 2 games where Tim Boyle's 1 hit away from going into the game. And say what you will about Trevor Siemian, he's better than Tim Boyle. Second is, I don't understand why it took so long from the standpoint that Siemian may have been ready to be the #2 quarterback this week if they had signed him immediately after the Rodgers injury. So, do I want to say that Trevor Siemian not being on this team cost them a game? I don't know that I'd go that far, but I will say, I think that Sunday's game against New England, that's the point where you think about going to the bullpen when Zach Wilson's struggling to make his reads so much that you just have to try something new. You need to try and shake things up. Could Siemian have done enough to win the game? I think it's a possibility. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I think it could have happened. Number 3, this is the thing I really don't understand. And I think it kind of proved itself by the way things played out. The Jets clearly had Siemian high on their list. See, when you're an NFL team, it's a best practice in the front office to have like a list of available free agents ready to go in case you have an injury. You need to sign somebody. So I never understood the idea that, the Jets needed to wait around and figure out which of these quarterbacks they were signing. They should already have had a list of guys who were available and guys who would interest them. And maybe, you bring them in for a workout just to make sure they're in shape. Or if there's like 2 guys who are close, then you bring them both in for a workout and see who looks better. But this did not require 2 weeks of deliberation. Siemian should have been ready to go. And here's the thing. The Jets brought in Siemian for a visit and signed him immediately. So it was clear they did not need a lot of time to figure out whether to sign him. So, I don't want to make too much out of this because it is Trevor Siemian. It's not really going to have that big of an impact on the team this year, I don't think. But still, it's one of those things you'd like to see the Jets move a little bit more decisively because they obviously had a list of players. Siemian was obviously at the top of the list. They did not need to see a lot from him today as they brought him in. It's just one of those things that you kind of, I'm kind of left like scratching my head about. And the Jets do this a lot. I'll see things that the Jets do, and I just am puzzled by the process that got them there. I know that a lot of people are going to be puzzled by the process that gets you Trevor Siemian, but it's not like there were a lot of great options available for this football team. I mean, was Carson Wentz better? Matt Ryan already ruled him out. Chad Henne, a veteran quarterback. There's rumors the Jets were interested, but he wasn't interested in them because he's, he's retired. The signing of whichever quarterback the Jets got was never going to be an inspired choice. If it wasn't going to be Siemian, it was going to be a Siemian type player. But the Jets put it off oddly. I don't understand why it took 2 weeks. And essentially all you've done is you've set your team back to a very minor extent. Don't want to make more out of it than it is, but to a very minor extent, it feels like you kind of set your team back 2 weeks because there's really no reason this couldn't have been done 2 weeks ago. They could have done this the day after the day they placed Rodgers on injured reserve. So very puzzling, and I'm not sure I entirely understand it. Anyway, that's all for this special edition of Locked On Jets here on this Tuesday. Tomorrow, we'll have our weekly mailbag show. Each Wednesday, we try to do a mailbag with listener questions. So if you've not gotten your questions in yet, please do so as soon as possible. I look forward to answering them in tomorrow's episode of the Locked On Jets podcast. Until then, take care, everybody.